that's okay.
Yes, please, Auntie June, will you please lead us in a prayer?
Isabel and Joanna, is it okay if I go ahead?
Yes.
Um, in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we ask that you go before us as we gather and grow today. Please prepare our hearts and minds to focus on whatever Isabel and Joanna have to teach and guide us through, and grant us the understanding of what is being taught. Grant us the desire for the knowledge and the energy to pursue it with diligence as our beloved educators would want us to. May we be contributors to the message and a light to those around us always. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you. That was beautiful.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, I will start. Hi, my name is Isabel Chavez, and I work for Primary Residential Mortgage. I am a mortgage loan originator. I have been for about 7, 8 years now, and I love helping people, educating them on finances, and I'm just excited to be here and share some knowledge.
And my name is Joanna Rushing. I am also with Primary Residential Mortgage. I have been a mortgage loan originator since 2019, but I started in the mortgage industry in 2014. I spent a lot of time on the back end doing processing and then also doing loan officer assistance work. So I really cut my teeth for about 4 or 5 years doing all the back end stuff and then moved into origination after I had my kids. So I'm a mother to two beautiful children. I've got a 9-year-old and an almost 7-year-old. And unfortunately, we might hear them at some point tonight. So my apologies if that's the case.
That goes for me too. It's okay.
Well, I think I like that it's everybody's family here. It makes me feel a little more safe. All right, Isabel, it's all
All
you.
right. So we are here, like Vanessa said, to talk about financial literacy. And what is financial literacy? It is the ability to understand and effectively manage money, basically, in a nutshell. Um, let's see here. So we would like to touch base on a few things. For the most part, it involves, right, understanding how money works, learning how to budget, save, spend wisely, make informed decisions financially, which is the reason we're here to try to help out with that a little bit, so that you can prepare for your future goals and emergencies. And why does it matter? We feel it definitely reduces a lot of financial stress on families. It prepares you financially for the unexpected, builds confidence with your money decisions. It can make you make better decisions, creates opportunity for your future success as well. So building good financial habits, how you can do so is basically tracking your spending, saving consistently, avoid unnecessary debt, try to plan ahead for large expenses, set short-term and long-term goals so that you can plan, like if you plan ahead, basically you're kind of already setting yourself up for success regardless. And basically, you can start by creating a simple budget in order to track some monthly expenses. We dropped one in the chat in a PDF that you can download as a sample. Every situation, of course, is going to be different. So I would recommend that you find what fits for you, create your own. But this is a sample you can follow. And basically, start with your income because you should not go past that, right? So list all your expenses, separate your needs from your wants, set savings goals, and review and adjust regularly. Your savings goals typically should be about 3 to 6 months of all of your expenses, your necessary expenses for emergencies. Sorry, you're fine. And your needs and wants are, right? Essentials are housing, whether that's a mortgage or rent, food, transportation, whether that's a bus pass, if you have a vehicle, an auto loan, or you can maybe just have gas expenses and insurance, but it's still going to be part of your transportation, utilities. Then you can plug in the wants for extra purchases like dining out rather than cooking, and luxury items, right? Like if you buy a Yeti instead of a Walmart special coffee cup. So learning the difference helps control your spending. Smart budgeting starts with prioritizing the needs before the wants. And here's also a little sample of your budget. The other one, the spreadsheet that we dropped into the chat, does go more into depth. But basically, if you make $4,500 a month and you have a $1,500 rent or mortgage, then your housing, of course, $1,500 minus, then again, you add utilities, food, transportation, savings, and then what do you have left for your miscellaneous? And you should really try to stick to your budget. We also recommend looking at it regularly, right? To basically, if you go into the negative at one point, you have an emergency, then you can move things around, tweak them, and not splurge so much the following month. And let's see, next slide. So the importance of savings, it's going to allow you protection for any emergency that you have, like I said, and you can get a flat tire. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a huge emergency, although that could really be a huge emergency. But it helps with also your future goals. If you set goals for short-term, long-term, you can reduce financial stress. And I can't stress that enough because I know I feel it time to time, paycheck to paycheck, sometimes regardless. So once the savings starts decreasing, you do have an emergency, you start wiping it out, build it back up, and that definitely reduces stress and can create a long-term financial stability basically for yourself and your family. So you definitely need to start with smart spending habits as well, or not start, but smart spending habits are a good place to start. Compare prices before you buy. Don't just jump into buying something you want immediately. Impulse purchasing, right? Try to find discounts, sales. Ask yourself if the purchase aligns with your goals, maybe short term, if you're going to find it important this week, next month, or next year. And maybe you don't need it. Maybe you don't buy it. So understanding where borrowing, right? If you start buying more than what you have to spend, you might need to borrow, or maybe for car loans. So borrowing means to use money that must be repaid. And that would be, like I said, including car loans, student loans, mortgages. So you do want to borrow responsibly as well. And we feel by being financially literate, that's going to help you be more responsible. That way it's not just for like emergencies. It's not just for your daily. It's really just understanding overall. And we will be going into more depth basically about the borrowing, specifically mortgages. But anyway, monthly payments do affect your budget and you need to understand how that works. So your financial goals, right? This is where what is one short-term financial goal, whether that is if you feel you don't have any money to save to start, even if it is just $5, $10, 20, 50, 100, start somewhere and make that as one of your must be paid bills. Set your long-term financial goals. What are you trying to save for? Is it to buy a house? Is it to buy a car? Whatever the case may be, and set that aside as well. So what habits can you build, just like the ones I discussed previously, that can help you reach those goals also. And so what do you guys think? Like maybe drop it in the chat too. Like what is one short-term goal that you have, one long-term goal? But in ending, I do want to say that just remember that small choices will help you today create a stronger financial future. And does anybody have any questions at this time? you need it.
Isabella's a short-term financial goal. Is that more a want rather than a need? Could
That
it
can
be?
vary. I mean, it definitely can be a want versus a need. I guess it would depend on what your short-term goal is. For instance, if your
Mhm.
short-term goal is to start saving for the emergency fund for 3 to 6 months, then I would really say that's more of a need versus a
Okay.
want,
So that
right?
could be a
So,
short-term goal to start
right,
saving for a specific want or
right.
need. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it could vary. That's why it's also very, very specific to every situation, and it's important that you take a look at all of your specific needs, wants, income, expenses. But yeah,
Hmm.
we can definitely dive more into it if you have specific questions later on as well. Anybody else? Were there any in the chat? No. Good.
Angela, I see your lips moving. If you have a question, we can't hear you.
Stating my goal would be to compare prices. Cause sometimes I'm like, I need this, and I just buy it. So yeah, I'm gonna start not being so hasty and compare prices.
Well, Amazon makes it pretty easy to be hasty, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly, that's my point.
Oh my gosh.
That is one thing actually I forgot. I was going to suggest like when you start adding things to your cart, don't buy immediately. Like maybe wait a week, set one day a week that you can actually go in and buy. And by then maybe you would have deleted like 5 things.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the problem with long or maybe short-term goals where you're saving up for something that you need, by the time you get there, the price is even more than what it was at the beginning. Did I say it right? I think,
Yeah, sometimes the price
sometimes
goes up instead of down.
yes.
I think it
And
depends
and
what it
and
is too.
yes, of course. Um, just for an example, I just bought a vehicle. And if I had bought this particular vehicle, say in March or April of last year, I probably would have saved money. However, I wasn't prepared to purchase at that time because I thought that I had other goals at the time. But it ended up where I'm paying a whole lot more just because of what the economy is doing. So I think I don't know if it worked against me or it worked for me. I'm not sure, but anyway, that was one thing that um
Well, I think it kind of goes back to what Isabel was talking about, that smart spending habits can help you prepare for the unexpected, just like
yeah,
something along those lines. Because the price may have been cheaper, you know, six
a
or
year
eight
ago
months or a
last
year
year.
ago, but you
Yeah.
weren't in the place to make that purchase at that time. So the
Hmm.
lower cost is all well and good, but it really wasn't an option at that point. We deal with
Yeah.
this with mortgages all the time. We had, much lower interest rates during COVID. So if you were buying in 2020, you got a very different deal than if you're buying now. But if you weren't in a financial place to buy in 2020, then it really, I hate to say this because it sounds careless, but it doesn't really matter is the unfortunate thing. And
Right.
I try to make light of it. I tell people all the time, before I had kids, I was 50 pounds lighter, but that ship has sailed. I mean, it's all well and good, but what are you going to do about it?
What do you do
Exactly. So all we can do is work with what we've got now. So
at
so
the time? Right.
exactly. So I think what the thing that I would take away from this would be that if that was your experience, which I'm sure it absolutely was, because car prices have been, absolutely ridiculous recently.
Yeah.
But it would be to, going forward to try to get yourself in the best financial position that you can be so that the next time that opportunity is there, you're ready to pounce on it rather than saying, well, I need to wait a year so that I can get myself in that financial position in order to
Yeah.
make that move next time. And I
And
think
I
that's
think
kind of
you absolutely have to take that plunge. I mean, you just have
mhm,
to do it.
exactly.
So, and I felt like that too. I just had to do it because it was time. Um, so there, but for the grace of God, we're doing good. So, yeah,
Fantastic. Well, and a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
it too is time. I mean, you mentioned that too. Time is, you hear the phrase time is money, and it really is true because so many of these things, savings takes time, making money takes time, investing takes time, all of these things. And so the sooner you start, the better off you can put yourself going forward. I can't get my 50 pounds back, but I can start now eating more healthy and, going to start working out. I'm not going to get the last 5 years where I gained all the weight back, but I can make the progress going forward. And I think
yeah,
that's really kind of the point that we're trying to make here is preparing for the future, whether that be, at 20 years old or at 40 years old or at 60 or 80 years old. It doesn't really matter because what we can do is we can use these principles to kind of go forward. And that's
yeah.
the basic idea.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, I'll go ahead and jump into the next part. We're going to talk about credit specifically, especially in our jobs. Credit plays a really, really large role. Credit is one of the things that can either kind of make or break you when you're trying to buy a house. So we're going to go a little bit more broad and just talk about kind of what credit is, what credit scores are, how they work, that kind of stuff. Because one thing that I've found is that there's a very large lack of knowledge as to just how credit scores and credit works. So we're trying to dispel some myths and maybe get a little bit of tools in our belt to kind of, again, like I said, move forward. So to start, I would say, just giving a basic definition of credit. Credit is the process or act of receiving something of value now, such as money, goods, services, with the intention or understanding that that cost will be paid back later, typically with interest and or fees. So credit is something that you really kind of only want to use when you need to, because when you're getting the value now with the intention of paying it back, then you do incur fees and interest, and whatever you're using on credit oftentimes ends up costing you a whole lot more money. But it's kind of like we were just talking about, how if you don't have the money now, but you need the thing now, then credit can be a really useful tool to kind of get you moving forward. When we talk about like how a credit score is built, lenders are going to track your borrowing and spending habits and repayment habits, and that's going to result in your credit score. So when we talk about your credit score, the score is just a numerical representation of how likely you as an individual are to pay back your debts, and it's based on your past borrowing and payment history. So you want to build that credit score. It doesn't happen overnight because it's going to be based on what you've done in the past. The only way to predict the future is to see what's gone on in the past, and that's all a credit score is. So, how exactly does a credit score work? Credit scores are built up of a bunch of different things, and several of them are going to be weighted higher than others. So, your credit score is determined by your payment history. So, did you pay back on time? Did you have late payments? How long have you been paying that particular debt? It's also going to be based on how much of your available credit that you're using. These are the two main things that are kind of going to impact your credit score. I think on a FICO score I was reading the other day, these two first items here, payment history and how much of your available credit you're using, make up about 60% of your credit score. Everything else is the other 40%, but these two alone are about 60% of the credit score. So when we talk about how much of your available credit that you're using, generally the rule of thumb that we tell people is that if you have a credit card with a limit, you don't want your balance on that credit card to ever go over 30% of the limit. That's sort of the break even point. When you're below 30% of the limit, it works in your favor and your score goes up. When you're above 30% of your limit, it actually works against you and your score starts to go down. So some people will say, well, I got to keep a balance in order to make sure that it, reports on my credit. I don't think that's true. And if you do carry a balance, you want to make sure that that balance is never over 30% of the available limit. So just to use real numbers, if you have a credit card that has $1,000 limit, and that's how much you can borrow on that credit card, then you wouldn't ever want your balance on that credit card to go over $300 at any given point. And they can pull and report to the credit bureaus at any point during that month. So it's not that the balance at the end needs to be less than 30%, but really the balance should never go over 30% if you can help it. The next thing that's going to impact your credit score will be your current unpaid debt. So that's going to be basically the same thing as above. It's how much of the available credit are you using, but it's going to be another way to say that is how much have you not paid back yet? So we talked about credit cards, but then you also have like student loans, or you have car loans, or you have mortgages, where those are going to be, hey, we lent you this much money, and then you're slowly paying it off. So the quicker you pay it off, the more it's going to impact your credit score in the positive. But generally, you're going to have a dip in your credit score when you get a new credit item, because if you borrow $300,000 to buy a house, you have essentially maxed out that line at that point, even though you could never borrow more on it because it's an installment loan. But as you continue to pay it down, it will impact your credit score again in the positive. Next is the number and type of accounts that you have. So what we're talking about here is diversity of credit. I've mentioned a bunch of different credit types so far, but again, we're talking about credit cards, student loans, installment loans, auto loans, mortgage loans, home equity loans, anything that you have to repay back. So we're not talking about utilities. We're not talking about your cell phone bill. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about something that you ended up borrowing that now you have to pay back and is going to end up on a credit score. Next is going to be how long have you had your accounts open? So the length of your credit history will make a big impact on your credit score as well. If you're a brand new borrower, then your credit score is not going to be as high as if you've been carrying credit accounts for the last 20, 30 years. So I think I was looking at mine the other day. I've had credit since I think I was like 15 or 16 when I got my first job. And I'm still in the good range of length of credit accounts, even though my credit accounts are like 25 years old. I still have not made it to the excellent range for length of credit. So again, time is your best friend here. The sooner you can start, the sooner you can start building that long process. Next, you're going to have new inquiries. A lot of people will say, well, I don't want you to pull my credit because an inquiry is going to make it go down. The amount that a new inquiry affects your credit score is actually much lower than most people think. A mortgage credit pull is going to affect your credit, according to the CFPB, by about 3 to 5 points, and that's it. So we're not talking about astronomical numbers, but if you are constantly having new inquiries, then that shows lenders that you are constantly looking for new credit, which will impact you in the negative. So we try to ask people to keep their inquiries and new applications for credit lower rather than higher, because again, the more inquiries you have, the less likely lenders think that you are to repay it. They get the idea that you're overextending yourself. Last but not least, derogatory credit will severely impact you in the negative. So what we're talking about here is late payments, judgments, liens, foreclosures, bankruptcies, that kind of stuff. And what's wild about credit is it can be somewhat difficult to build it. It takes a while to build it. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes diversity, all these things we just talked about. But you have one late payment and it can drop your score by 50 points just like that. So what I tell people all the time is on time, every time. You have to pay it back when it's due. Otherwise, your credit score will tank. And I've seen it by 100 points, just like that. So when we talk about credit scores, the range is approximately 300 to 850. Every credit bureau has a different amount, but the typical range is about 300 to 850. I personally have never seen one in the 300s, but I've seen a lot down in the 400s in my time. So the ranges are 850 to 800 is exceptional. Anything over 800, you are an exceptional borrower. You're above, the majority of the US people who own credit. 799 down to 740 is considered very good. You are a cream of the crop borrower if you're over 740. We are thrilled to see somebody like that because that indicates that you have managed your money well. 739 down to 670 is considered good credit. So you're still doing well, but maybe you've had a late payment here or a late payment there. Maybe your credit card is over that 30%, whatever, but you're still, making payments. Then we have the fair scores, which are going to be about 669 down to 580, and anything below 580 is considered poor credit. The reason these things matter is because this is going to impact the terms and the kind of stuff that you get when you go to get new credit cards, loans, student loans, recreational vehicles, whatever. The people who are scoring you are going to be the three main credit bureaus, which are Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. These are kind of the main guys that do all the credit reporting. Each bureau is going to assess you slightly differently, which often results in 3 different credit scores. A lot of times we'll see people who have credit scores that are all within about 10 points of each other, but I've seen some that Equifax is 100 points higher than TransUnion. And a lot of times it just depends on who's reporting what. If something got missed by one of the bureaus, then you may have an artificially high credit score from one of them. And vice versa. If something gets incorrectly reported by one of the bureaus, then you may have a lower credit score, which is one of the reasons why most lenders will do a tri-merge credit report, where we will pull all three bureaus so that we get a very nice, it'll have like a really nice, I don't know what I'm trying to say, diversity to kind of give us a better idea, a more clear picture. The two main types of credit scores are going to be Vantage and FICO. And I think I saw one of the questions in the chat here. I'll pause in a second here to answer the questions. But the two main types of credit scores are going to be Vantage and FICO. Vantage is typically going to be more of a consumer credit score. So this will often be what you can see through Credit Karma. If you have credit cards that give you credit monitoring, I have CreditWise. And my Vantage score is always higher than my FICO score without fail. Vantage tends to be a little bit more forgiving to your credit score because often we're assessing you for a smaller debt with less risk. So if you are looking to buy, get a personal loan that's maybe the term's only going to be, a year or two and it's going to be a couple $1,000, then your Vantage score is going to be a little bit better for that. It also often works as a consumer credit score so that programs like Credit Karma can show you the credit score and then offer you goods and services on credit. So Credit Karma is not in the business of just giving you information. They also want to sell you credit cards and student loans and all kinds of other stuff too. FICO scores are a little bit more aggressive. It stands for the Fair Isaac Credit something model. But what it is it's going to be a little bit more of an aggressive look at your credit. When we use it for mortgages, we do a mortgage FICO, which is different than just a typical FICO. But it's, again, assessing you for a greater risk for hundreds of thousands of dollars over a much longer term, say 30 years. And so oftentimes you will see a FICO score come in lower than a Vantage score. That does not mean that your credit has dropped. It just means that it's a different calculation of the available facts. So for instance, I think my Vantage score is usually around 810, 815. When I get a FICO score pulled almost without fail, it's 780. It drives me nuts, but it doesn't mean that my credit has dropped by 30 points. It just means it's a different set of risk. Okay. So why does your credit score matter? Lenders use your credit score to assess you as a borrower. Again, we can only predict the future and understand whether or not you're going to pay the lender back if we can see how you have made those decisions in the past. The higher the credit score, the more likely you are to repay the debt. It's not a perfect model, but it is the general rule. If you have that higher credit score, you are typically a better borrower. This is going to impact credit cards, rentals, insurance, loans of all types, student loans, installment loans, car loans, mortgage loans, all of that stuff. Lenders are really interested in knowing how you've done in the past with other lenders, and they're going to use that information to figure out how you're going to pay them back for whatever it is that they lend you. And often this will result in better terms if you have a higher credit score, because a higher credit score equals lower risk for your lender. So that's kind of an overview on credit. I'm going to move to the questions here in the chat, and then we can have a little bit more of a discussion if that's okay. Let's see. What's the difference between a FICO score and the 3-digit credit score? So we kind of touched on that. FICO and Vantage are both going to give you a 3-digit credit score. Their ranges are going to be different. Vantage, I believe, is a larger range, but a FICO score will often be a 3-digit number as well. So the FICO is that 300 to 850 range. And again, it's just a different way to analyze the data based on what that lender is trying to accomplish. The next question is it true if you have several pulls, but for the same thing, it only counts as one pull, such as shopping for a mortgage? So that's a great question. I know what it does for mortgages because I am a mortgage lender. What it does for other industries, I am not as clear on, but I believe just like when you go to buy a car, they run your credit with like 10 different companies. You're allowed to do the same thing with a mortgage. Typically, we tell you want to do it in about 2 weeks, you have about 2 weeks to have multiple lenders pull your credit. It will show up as multiple inquiries on your credit report, but it will only dock you that 3 to 5 points for that initial pull because the CFPB, which is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they want you to shop around. And so they're going to say, we're not going to penalize you for shopping around. We're going to say, yes, you had the one inquiry, but then as a consumer, yeah, absolutely, go shop around, get the best rate, figure out what's going to make sense for you. Work with the company that you feel comfortable with. And so go ahead and have multiple people pull your credit, but it should be within that one range, generally about 2 weeks. And everybody will tell you a different range, but in my experience, you're safe in 2 weeks. Once you go out of that, it's a little more iffy. I think those were all the questions in the chat. So is there anything else before we move on?
I had a question on that 30% limit on the credit card.
Mhm.
Does that matter if you pay it off completely every month?
So this is where it gets a little bit hazy because if you have it higher than that, and that's when your credit card reports to the bureaus, then even if you pay it off, the information that went to Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax from Capital One or Chase or whatever is going to say, hey, so Joanna had a $10,000 limit and she spent $9,000 this month, even though she paid it off. So it could potentially impact you, even if you pay it all the way off, because it'll depend on when that actually gets reported. And every credit company is different when they report, and every bureau is different when they actually release the information. So the nice thing about that is if you do pay it off, the next time it gets reported, your score will probably recover whatever points you lost, or at least similarly. But if you kind of want to, like if you're trying to build credit, I always counsel my clients, keep that balance at all times, not just at the end of the month, but at all times under 30%. And a lot of people don't know you can pay towards your credit anytime you want. So like if you make a large purchase and you want all the points on the credit card, like sometimes I do, then I'll make the large purchase, let it hit my credit, and then the next day I'll just go ahead and pay it off because I got the points, but I don't necessarily have to wait for the bureaus to report that I maxed out my credit card.
30% of your debt to income ratio or 30% of your credit card not balance, but
Limit.
what you can limit.
Yes.
Which one is it, Joanna?
30% of your available limit on the credit card.
Okay.
Okay, that's what you want to keep your balances under.
That's good information. I didn't know that.
And
Yeah,
most people
I
don't.
didn't know that either.
It's
Okay.
a very simple little trick, and most people don't realize it. And again, it's not the end of the world if you put more on it. But the other big thing here is you want to pay it off on time every time. So carrying a balance is what's going to really screw you up. Having a higher balance for a little bit and then paying it off is not going to destroy you. It's when that balance rolls, that's when it's going to start impacting you. Because some of these credit cards, especially right now, are at 25, 30% interest. And so if you don't pay it off, you'll be paying it for the rest of your life. Like it's kind of wild. All right, we have another one. I had a huge credit card transaction, and even before the next payment was due, it severely affected my credit. I paid it all when the monthly bill minimum payment was due, and it went right back up, which is probably going to be pretty typical because again, the what they're trying to determine with the credit score is how responsible you are with money. So if you use all the credit and then pay it off, they're going to say, "Oh, she wasn't actually going to keep that rolling." So we'll kind of give her the benefit of the doubt back when we took it after that balance went up. And it's interesting too. I'll tell you a quick story if we have time. I went to go buy a house in 2020, and I work at a mortgage company, so my boss pulled my credit, which is just the funnest thing in the world, if you're wondering. And so my boss pulls my credit and he says, "Joanna, your score is in the high 600s." And I've been an 800 credit score person my entire life. My dad is in the financial industry, and that was the one thing he drilled into us is you do not spend money you don't have. So I had a slight panic attack knowing that my credit had gone down into the fair range. And so I went to look at it. It turns out I had a credit card that had a monthly or an annual fee on it that I never used. And at the time, my husband at the time, now ex-husband, not for this story, but at the time, he was the one who was in charge of paying the credit cards. And so I didn't even know it had happened, but it was only in my name. So his credit was fine. And mine had dropped by about 100 points. Actually, more than 100 points. It was about 130. And So we immediately paid the fee, and I called. I think it was Discover. No, it was Barclays. I called Barclays and I said, "Look, this was you can look at my credit history. I've paid everything on time for the last 20 years. This is not like me. It was an oversight. I paid it off the second I knew it. Is there any way you can, basically as a courtesy, remove the late payments?" And they said, "Absolutely not. You can dispute it if you want." And knowing the mortgage side that I know, disputes can really screw you up. So I said, "No, that's all right. It was my fault. I did pay it late. So I'm gonna, take I'll take my responsibility for it."
Punishment. Yeah.
And about a week later, I got an email from one of my credit reporting something or others that said, "Congratulations, you're in the 800 club." And I thought, that's weird. So I clicked on it, and it turns out that they had removed the late payment for me because I had asked nicely and I had the credit history that I had. And so I tell people all the time, it doesn't hurt to ask. If something's on your credit that you don't love, call them. The worst they can say is no. But every once in a while, if you talk to the right person who's having a good day, you might just get it back. So credit's not nearly as rigid, I think, as a lot of people think. There's a lot of nuance in play there.
It does not hurt to give them a sob story too. Just
I mean, it would work on me. I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I will totally help you. Tell me more." All righty. Anything else on credit? If you hear nothing else I said, pay it back on time every time.
Yeah, I gotta go pay my Southwest credit card.
I think I need to pay my Southwest credit card too, actually.
Would remind
maybe
you.
even log into all of your accounts that you have, right? Like you said, just make sure the balance is zero, you never use it, log in just in case.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you might have an annual fee you forgot about. And
That's true. Yeah.
On time, every time. That's what I took from that.
On time,
Or
every time.
early.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, we're going to move on to talking specifically about mortgages. And Isabel's going to start that one.
And so what is a mortgage, right? Joanna touched on this a little bit, but it is a loan, but it is specifically for the for the purposes of purchasing a residential property. And the mortgage is the collateral that oh my gosh, I'm all tongue twisted now. The mortgage is collateralized by the property that you're purchasing. The property is the collateral. So typically the loan will be amortized for over 30 years and have a fixed rate. So then we can go into the types of loans, and this is going to be real basic. These are your traditional loan types. We do have other various types of loans. We have others that are not fixed in rate, but your traditional loan programs are going to be conventional, which would be for basically the great credit scores. If you have a lower credit score and you go conventional, it's going to cost you a lot more money. So typically conventional will be for the higher scores, your lower debt to income ratios. FHA, VA, and USDA are backed by the government, so they do offer a little bit more flexibility for the borrower. So they allow slightly lower credit scores and slightly higher debt to income ratios. The VA loans, they're very flexible as well. They're pretty much similar to FHA, even a little bit more forgiving at times. But of course, that's available for veterans and active military borrowers only, or their spouses actually at some points as well. Then USDA, those are more specific to the property being in a rural area, and not all rural areas qualify. We do have to actually enter the exact address into the USDA website and make sure that it qualifies. And so in determining whether you qualify for a mortgage, right? Well, what is pre-qualification is the process of a lender confirming that you are eligible for a mortgage loan according to the guidelines that we have to follow. And the lender, myself and Joanna, will review your unique credit profile to determine your ability to repay, which also we judge you by your credit score. So in the pre-qualification, we become CIA agents. And we review your application for credit, income, and assets. The way that your credit, income, and assets fit together will determine the program that we recommend and the terms that you qualify for, basically in your own unique situations. So after your application is reviewed, we determine your ability to repay. Then, of course, we'll write you the pre-qualification letter. This is what tells your realtor that you are able to shop for a home now. And this is also what your realtor will probably submit along with your offer to let the seller know that you are qualified. It shows them that you have been vetted and that we are expecting you to close with the information that you have provided.
So once you've been pre-qualified and we have determined that you do have the ability to repay and that your credit is sufficient and that you meet the guidelines, then we kind of talk to you about how the loans work and what kind of loan you're maybe going to use going forward. So most mortgage loans are going to require some sort of down payment. A conventional loan is going to require a 3% minimum down payment if you are a first-time home buyer. If you're not a first-time home buyer, then conventional's minimum amount for down payment is actually 5%. The FHA will allow you to do a minimum down payment of 3.5%. So that can be really useful. A misnomer oftentimes is that FHA loans are only for first-time home buyers, which is not true. You do not have to be a first-time home buyer to use an FHA loan. You can use an FHA loan multiple times throughout your life. You just, in 99% of cases, cannot have two FHA loans at the same time. USDA and VA both allow their borrowers to use a 0% down payment, but you have to qualify for those types of loans. So when you're talking with a lender, we will help you determine what's going to make the most sense for you based on your unique credit profile when we do the pre-qualification. In addition to the down payment, you're also expected to pay closing costs. Your closing costs are kind of all of the fees associated with a home purchase. So it's going to be our fee as the loan originator. You'll have your first year of homeowners insurance. You have to get an appraisal. There's the title company that's going to charge you their fees. And then there's a handful of other stuff as well. But it's basically all the things that are required to complete the transaction and all the people that need to get paid to do their job in order for you to buy a house. Closing costs oftentimes are going to be 2 to 4% of the loan amount. That's just kind of a general rule of thumb. It can go much higher and it can sometimes be even lower than that, depending on a lot of different things, one of which would be your credit score. So one thing that we like to do at PRMI is let people know that you don't necessarily have to have a down payment in order to buy a house. We have multiple programs that are not just USDA and VA, because those are the only two loan programs that offer 0% down. But we have tons of other different types of loan programs that offer down payment assistance. This is often in the form of a second mortgage and then sometimes even a third mortgage, which can significantly lessen your cash to close. There's a lot of people out there who will say you should always have 20% down. I think Dave Ramsey says that you should never ever buy a house without 20% down and it has to be a 15-year mortgage, which is a great idea, but it's just simply not realistic for a lot of people. And the reason that we preach even the down payment assistance where sometimes you're borrowing more money than the house is worth. In some of these instances where we have the second mortgage and the third mortgage, sometimes we're lending people 102% of the purchase price of the house. So you're starting upside down. But what's important to remember is that home ownership builds wealth. And that's the financial literacy. That's kind of the next piece we're talking about. We already talked about saving and spending wisely and budgeting. And then we talked about how credit works so that you can set yourself up for financial success. But home ownership, one of the big things we preach is that home ownership oftentimes equals wealth. It also can be something that builds generational wealth. I know right now I'm in the process of, I got divorced about 3 years ago, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out not only how am I going to set my kids up for success in the future, but how on earth am I going to retire someday? And one of the main things that I'm doing is I'm trying to build a real estate portfolio because real estate appreciates in value over time better than almost any other asset when you look at it historically. So homeownership can be an extremely effective way to build wealth, especially when you consider that you have to live somewhere and you're going to be paying either your mortgage or your landlord's mortgage. And so someone's going to benefit by the fact that you live there. And I don't know about you guys, but I would really like it to be me that benefited from the fact that I'm paying someone every month. So buying allows you to invest in your own future rather than somebody else's future. And it's interesting, Isabel and I were talking about this earlier when we were building this presentation. There was an article on Realtor.com that was talking about how homeowners have a significantly higher net worth than renters. And I think the statistic they gave was like 43% or 43 times more than a renter is a homeowner's net worth. So yes, you're paying every month. Yes, you're paying interest, but the interest on renting is 100%. You're
100.
getting no benefit from that. And sometimes I like to do this with people, especially when I have renters in my office. If you're buying a house, and let's say that you are going to purchase a home for $350,000, okay, about median house price in Albuquerque, and you take out a loan for, say, $325,000. Yeah, your mortgage payment is probably going to be about $3,000. There's no way around that when we talk about interest rates, property taxes, mortgage insurance, all this stuff. But let's say you were able to rent that same house for $3,000 a month. If you pay your landlord $3,000 a month for 30 years, like you would a mortgage, and 360 months, you will have paid your landlord, and this is a terrifying number, you will have paid your landlord $1,080,000 to live in that house for 30 years. And at the end of it, you will have nothing to show for it. No equity, no home you can leave to your kids, no ability to rip out the screen door you hate and put in a different one. None of that. And so, yes, you're going to spend the money either way. But if I spend that same $3,000 every month for the next 30 years, one, my landlord can't raise my mortgage payment on me. Two, I can refinance it down to a lower rate at some point. Three, I can borrow against the equity of my house. But bigger than any of that is number four, at the end of that, or even anywhere in the middle, I've created my own equity as the home continued to appreciate. So a lot of times I like to talk about it like this. I'm going to move a little bit so you can see. When you buy a house, you start off here and you have the amount of money that you borrowed and the value of the house. And a lot of times they're going to be pretty much exactly the same. But throughout time, you're going to pay your mortgage down and it's going to go this way. But also your home is going to appreciate in value. I think typical appreciation in Albuquerque is about 2 to 3%. So while you're paying down your mortgage, your value is actually increasing as well in a typical market, right? And so your equity doesn't grow like this, where you pay down and the value stays the same, but your equity actually grows like a piece of pie. It goes like this. And so not only do you have more value in your home, but you also have all the equity that you've paid down. So let's talk about that same $350,000 house. If it appreciates at even just 2%, let's just be conservative. $350,000 the first year, the second year at 2% interest or appreciation, excuse me. Now your home's worth $357,000 after 1 year. After the second year, it's now worth $364,000. After the third year,
$14,000.
Yep. After the third year, it's now worth $371,000. Fourth year, $378,000. Fifth year, $386,000. Simply by owning the house, existing in it, and continuing to pay what you were going to pay anyway, mortgage or rent, you've gained $36,000 in equity just by living there. And that's how homeownership builds wealth. Because if you do that for 5-10 years, that home's worth a whole lot more. And you have something to leave to future generations, or you have something that can help you in retirement, or you have something that you can borrow against for the next purchase, whatever that may be, car, college, who knows. But this is one of the big things that we preach is homeownership is part of financial literacy because it's using the resources that are already there in order to continue to build your financial goals and also your wealth and your net worth. So I kind of
in those
already summed
5
it
years,
up.
I'm sorry, Joanna, I was
No,
just going
no,
to throw
please.
in real quick. Even in those 5 years, so basically you either paid 180,000 with that $3,000 a month, right, of somebody else's mortgage and made them money, or you could have basically had your savings with your pie. What did you do?
With your pie, exactly. Can you tell I've done this like 7,000 times?
I know I couldn't get there.
Cool. Well, I mean, just to kind of recap, we were talking about the kind of the pillars of financial literacy that we're talking about here is budgeting and saving, borrowing and spending wisely, and investing in yourself and your own future because the money's going to go somewhere. And you have the opportunity to have it work for you instead of against you by simply implementing some of these rules, like not impulse spending, keeping your credit card balances under 30%. I say all the time, knowledge is power, and it's true because if you don't know how to make the system work in your favor, then it will eat you alive. But if you know how to make the system work in your favor, you can benefit from it just like everybody else. So that's all I've got. Actually,
Any
I
more
could talk
questions?
for forever. I'll stop now.
We have more.
I'm curious, is any who's homeowners? Cool.
I think we all are.
Fantastic.
Most.
That I'm preaching to the choir.
Yeah, especially in the last few years, the equity really went up, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of wild. I think I bought my house in October of 2020. And so I've owned it for about almost 6 years now. And it's probably gone up by about 12% would be my guess in those 6 years, which is bonkers.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah, that's a good thing.
Actually, I think I'm probably closer to 15.
Yeah.
Well, are there any questions?
No, that was good information on the 30% and paying it off quickly.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you.
Oh,
Between, what's the difference between refinancing and taking out your equity?
So-
Type of a
So-
loan.
That's a really good question. And there's a couple pretty fundamental differences. When you refinance, you're actually taking the loan that exists, paying it off with a new loan. Okay. So you had one mortgage loan, say for $200,000 at 7% interest. And then rates go down. And so you get a new loan for $200,000, but now it's at 6% interest. So you use this new loan to pay the old loan off. And that's what's going to allow you to get that lower interest rate. You can change the terms sometimes. So maybe you get a 20-year mortgage instead of a new 30-year mortgage. Maybe you want a new 30-year term so that you pay less every single month now at the lower rate. But a refinance is just using a new loan to pay off an old loan. And so you get a brand new loan. When you get a home equity loan or a home equity line of credit, your existing mortgage stays there. Nothing changes on it. But then you borrow a second type of mortgage that is going to kind of piggyback off of it. So this one's in first lien position, which just means that if your house were to burn down, the insurance company would pay these people first. And then if any money was left over, they would pay the second lien holder, which would be your HELOC. The benefit of doing it this way is like, for instance, I have a COVID rate, right? So I have a sub 3% interest rate on my house because I bought in 2020 when rates were that low. So even if I wanted to pull money out of my house, I don't want to mess with my current loan. I want to
No.
leave it there.
Right.
But I have equity now, right? Just like we talked about a second ago. My house is worth more money now. I have goals that I'm trying to hit. And so this is exactly what I did. I wanted to buy an investment property. And so I took out a home equity line of credit on my house for the equity that I had there in order to make a down payment on another property that now I have a renter in. But the benefit there is that this loan stayed the same. I didn't mess with the interest rate on this loan. The other benefit from a home equity line of credit is that now this line of credit, this second mortgage here, I get to kind of mess with my own way because a home equity loan is going to operate very similarly to a credit card. They're going to give you a maximum amount you can borrow, but instead of it being collateralized against nothing and being at 25% interest rate, it's collateralized by my house. And so my home equity loan is at like 7% or 6.5%, something like that.
Hmm.
Well, my payment on my home equity loan is only going to be determined by how much I've actually borrowed against it. So let's just say I have a $50,000 line. Well, if I only borrow $20,000 on it, my payment's going to be a lot cheaper than if I borrowed $30,000 on it. And if I pay 10 grand of it off and now my balance is only 10 grand, well, now my payment's gone down again because it's only going to be based on the actual balance that's on that line of credit. It's not going to be based on a fully amortizing 30-year term like a regular mortgage.
So would I be making two payments a
Yes.
month then?
Correct.
Two different loans, two different animals and would it have to be from the same lender? Or could I go to a different lender because I don't want to lose my 3% on my mortgage, right?
Yeah.
So I could go to another lender to get a home equity loan
Mhm.
and it wouldn't affect this one at all, the original?
You can go to
Huh.
another lender or the same lender. You're just asking for a completely separate loan, not to refinance your current existing one.
Huh.
And
Well, see,
it can work really well as an emergency fund as well, if you have that, because another nice thing about a home equity line of credit is you don't have to borrow against it down the line. So like I borrowed against mine, bought the investment property I was working on, and then I paid my HELOC off down the road. So now I have a
yeah.
HELOC that's sitting on my house that has a $0 balance, a $0 payment because I only pay if I've borrowed against it. And most HELOCs are going to have some sort of term where you have a borrowing length and then you have a repayment length. So I think
Hmm.
for the first 10 years, I'm allowed to borrow pretty much whatever I want up to the limit. Past
Oh,
that, then I have to start paying it back in earnest. But I could pay interest-only payments for the first 10 years if I wanted to, and it would just sit there.
so I shouldn't have bought the new car.
Oh no, the new car is fine, but let's say you could get I don't know, a 4% interest rate on your HELOC, which if you can, let me know because I'll get the same HELOC.
I
But
was
let's
gonna say,
pretend
I don't,
let's pretend that maybe the rate was way better than whatever you got on your car. Then sure,
yeah.
you could get a HELOC on your house, pay your car loan off, and then you'd still have the same amount of money borrowed, but now it would be collateralized against your house instead of against your car.
Would it be a ding against my credit limit, my credit score? Do I
Probably.
wait?
Yes,
Do I
because
wait right now
you would
to
be getting
do the,
another credit item, another liability in quick succession after your last one. So yes, that would
yes,
ding your
so I
credit
should
score
wait.
negatively.
Yeah,
I would.
okay.
And is
Thank
it that
you.
better for income tax purposes? I mean, you could claim that as your mortgage, the equity loan. I believe that's what I did.
I want to say yes, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not a tax
think
professional,
that-
so I'd hate to steer you wrong.
Yeah,
I think
believe
that's what
that
I
is
did years
correct, but yeah, you
back.
would have to
That
ask.
helped.
And we did have another question here, but or I guess maybe a comment or a question, but it says from Stephanie, cash out, refi versus HELOC. Is cash out usually lower? And so I confirmed, are you asking about the rate being lower? She said yes, plus the interest can be wrote off, unlike a car loan. So one thing that I did want to touch on a little bit is it will vary per person. Like every scenario will be slightly different, right? So like June, in your situation, we don't want to touch your first loan on your mortgage,
Mm-mm.
right? With your low
Mhm.
rate. But let's say maybe you did have like a 5% rate, or let's say you were looking to get cash out and you were looking to get cash out to get debt free, like pay off credit cards that are like 24% right now. Then what we look at is what will it benefit you? Basically, what is to your best interest? Maybe we do a cash out refi, get all of the debt paid off and lumped in, and then give you a 6% interest rate, or do you take a HELOC or something else, depending on the rate there as well, like 10%, however they're going to determine the rate. to pay off your credit cards. So we like to look at every scenario differently, but yeah, it would depend.
That sounds like a great buffet. I mean, I'm hearing now that I should wait for a moment. Excuse me. At least a year? Should I wait like a year now that I've bought my vehicle in order? Yeah, Joanna's saying yes. So I'm thinking that I'm gonna do that. Um, yeah, thank you.
Inquiries typically stay on your credit report for about 4 months. So if you can, keep it to one credit pull per 4 months
Okay.
at the absolute maximum if you can. Sometimes it doesn't always work that way, right? Sometimes life happens and you gotta make different choices. But if you have control over it, then I would say try to keep it to a maximum of one credit pull every 4 months.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Isabel. I know where to find you. We know where you live.
I'm at the same office, so you can find me.
If you don't find me there, Joanna will be
Oh,
there.
that's true. I'm there a lot more than Isabel is.
Any other questions?
I can't think of any. Do you have any questions?
You
No, that
figure
was
out, like,
great
the
information. Thank
percentage
you.
of equity you have. How do you figure out like the
That
percentage?
is great information.
So the percentage of equity is a pretty simple math. It's the value of your home divided by whatever the balance is on your mortgage loans against the property. So all that equity is not necessarily available to you, though, is the important thing to note. When you're talking about home equity lines of credit or cash out refinances, most lenders will only let you borrow up to about 80% of your value. Sometimes we can knock it up to 90% for HELOCs. But a good rule of thumb is generally you have to leave about 20% of your equity in the house. So let's pretend you own a $500,000 house, okay? So if you have a $500,000 house and you owe $300,000 on that loan, then you have equity of $200,000. But you don't necessarily have access to equity of $200,000 unless you were to sell. But even in that instance, you would have fees associated with it. So you would not walk away with $200,000. But on a $500,000 valued house, if you wanted to take cash out, then the total balance of all your mortgage loans would be 80% in most cases of your value. So 80% of $500,000 is $400,000. So if your current mortgage is $300,000 and your total value is 500 and you want to take cash out, the maximum amount you could probably get out is about 100 in that instance. And if you want to know the value of your house, Zillow is not great for it, but it at least gives you a ballpark. Realtor.com has better information, so their values tend to be a little bit more accurate, but especially if you've made improvements, what Zillow and Realtor.com and all that stuff are pulling from is other sales in the area. So they don't know that you put in, quartz countertops and the really nice vanity and, whatever you did to your backyard. They don't know any of that. So you take those numbers with a grain of salt. But most real estate professionals, if you have like a friend who's a realtor, they can often run a current market analysis that can tell you, whatever they think your house is worth. Oh, Vanessa, are you a realtor? I just put a bunch of stuff on your plate. Sorry, my bad.
And Angela too. It's okay.
I just retired after 18 years.
Oh, okay. Well, that
I'm
would
no
be how
longer on
you would ask one
MLS,
of
but
these people.
Oh,
Vanessa,
no more MLS. Just kidding then.
but Vanessa can do a CMA.
Somebody with MLS access can give you a
Yeah,
CMA.
absolutely, absolutely.
What's a CMA, Angela? What's a CMA?
Comparative market
analysis. Got it.
analysis, yeah.
And that'll be more accurate than Zillow or Realtor.com by a landslide.
Market analysis. What was the first? What was the first?
Comparative market analysis.
Market analysis. Thank you, Antenj.
You're welcome.
You guys all like each other. This is cool.
Vanessa, I have you on speed dial.
You know where I live.
So realtor.com is the best for, what did you say?
Value of your home.
Oh, the value, but you need a realtor to do that for
Oh,
you.
okay.
If you don't
Yeah.
have a realtor and you just need a ballpark, realtor.com is the best one. But
Oh,
it's
yeah.
still going to be very inaccurate compared to an actual realtor giving you actual information. Saying realtor.com, I think probably made every
But we
realtor
should, really, we
I
should
know.
call them, right?
Yeah,
Should I
really, you
cross
should-
out realtor.com? I was gonna go to Zillow. I'm not gonna lie. Okay.
Well, you can
Zillow
also
is
compare them, but
notoriously
realtor.com would be
inaccurate.
more reliable, but then also Vanessa would be even more reliable.
Yeah,
So
you
we
get
go
like
to
a realtor
Vanessa?
is going to get pretty darn close. Realtor.com
Yeah.
is going to be like, if I ask my 9-year-old how much my house is worth, and then Zillow is going to be if I ask my 6-year-old how much my house is worth.
You're
They're
so good at that.
challenging.
That's funny.
So we go to Vanessa and then we go to Isabel or Joanna. Okay, gotcha.
And I'm going to point you to a realtor. I'm going to say, I have no idea what your house is worth. Let's call a realtor.
Okay.
Going to Vanessa, because I don't know anything about computers anyway. And she'll get the answers from me.
Awesome.
I think that's all we got. If anybody has any other questions.
Awesome.
I don't think so. When is too old to get a mortgage? I mean,
Never.
I'm 67. Would loan people loan me money?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Because age is a protected class. So we are not allowed as lenders to discriminate according to age. You could be 100 and I could write you a 30-year loan.
Really?
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
And I could not deny you based on age.
Huh.
Age,
Okay,
race,
thank you.
what, race, religion, national origins, sexual
But as old as we
orientation.
are, do we take our children as co-signers?
Not if you got the money.
Only if you
Now,
want
I'm the
to.
old one, yeah.
It's interesting that you say that because
Isabel and Megan?
I talked to a lady not too long ago. This was probably about a year or two ago, who asked me the same thing. And she was like, I want to buy an investment property, but I'm in my 70s. I'm not going to be around when the 30 years
I know, that
comes
worries
here.
me.
And I said,
We
well,
talked
who
about this.
cares? You get the opportunity to make that asset work for you now. And then when you move on from this life and that loan is still here, then somebody else has to deal with it, not you. And not in a bad way, not in a like, oh, that's my kid's problem.
Right.
But in a way that's like, okay, well, now the asset passed to them and they get to now make a choice whether or not they want to continue to build that equity based on the asset that you have had and held, or they can sell it and get the equity out right away, pay off the lender and be done. It's not a bad thing to leave your heirs a home with a mortgage on it. Not even a little bit. It actually can be a really beneficial thing, especially if you're not upside down and property has continued to appreciate. Property is one of the most stable assets when you look at it over the long term. It also has the best track record of continually going up. You look at statistics from even like when the market crashed and we had the Great Recession, the trajectory of homes appreciating is almost exactly a straight line with a dip for the Great Recession that goes right back to the same trajectory. It's wild. And so we have a similar thing happening now. We had all these values go up for COVID. There's been a little bit of a correction, but we're not seeing this massive dip and we're going to get right back on that trajectory is my thought. And so sure, be 70 or 80 or 90 and buy a house with a mortgage. Why not? You get 4, 5, 10, 20 years out of it. Great. You've realized that equity. There is no reason not to.
Wow. Okay.
I also think with the background of our family, the majority of us own investment properties and we're all property managers in some aspect. So no matter who it goes down to, it's going to be taken care of in the family. You know, like there's going to be a plan moving forward. Like we know how to deal with investments and properties and all that.
You're
Awesome.
right. You're right.
Say one other thing, but now I can't remember what it is. Can't have been that important.
It's because you took out the who slide.
Should have left it in.
This was so informative. Thank you both so
Thank you.
much.
It's
Yes,
my pleasure. Thank you for letting
Thank
me
you.
tag along.
Yeah, and the recording will be put on YouTube. So that should, I'll send it to the social media team and they can get that on YouTube. And so if you guys want to share with anybody, you're more than welcome to. And we really appreciate both of you and your time and all of your knowledge. And we look forward to the next one. The next Gather and Grow virtually is going to be June 17th, and it's going to be another AI. Just how have you been using AI for the last 6 months? We had one in January, and so we're going to just come back and touch base and see how everybody's utilizing it, if it's helped or not. And we really appreciate you, Joanna and Isabel, for sharing with us tonight.
Thank you
Yes,
both.
thank you.
Thank you.